Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the study along of the Advent of Divine Justice. If you are just tuning in for the first time, if you have no idea what this is, check out the first video in this series linked below. It's called Launching a New Project, and it explains what this is, why I'm doing it, and the scope of it. Most importantly, what the relevance of this letter that we're studying has for the United States, for the world, for each of our personal lives, regardless of what our path is. I think once you take this journey with me, you will see so much relevance for today and our personal lives. So that's my pitch. Check out the first video. In the meantime, I'm going to be diving in to paragraph 118 of this letter. You can also follow along. I have a link to an online version if you don't have the book copy. All right, you guys. So we are jumping in to, again, paragraph 118. We're almost done. To the efforts and accomplishments of those who, aware of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, are now laboring in that continent. He's talking about the North American continent. So to the efforts of the people who know about Baha'u'llah in North America, to their present and future course of activity. I have in the foregoing pages sufficiently referred. A word, if the destiny of the American people in its entirety is to be correctly apprehended, should now be said regarding the orientation of that nation as a whole and the trend of the affairs of its people. For no matter how ignorant of the source from which those directing energies proceed, and however slow and laborious the process, it is becoming increasingly evident that the nation as a whole, whether through the agency of its government or otherwise, is gravitating under the influences of forces that it can neither comprehend nor control towards such associations and policies wherein, as indicated by Abdul-Baha, her true destiny must lie. Both the community of the American believers who are aware of that source, I think he means Baha'u'llah, inspiring this new revelation, but it could be God, who are aware of that source, and the great mass of their countrymen who have not as yet recognized the hand that directs their destiny, are contributing, each in its own way, to the realization of the hopes and the fulfillment of the promises voiced in the above quoted words of Abdul-Baha. Above quoted meaning the last video where Abdul-Baha says that America will lead all nations spiritually. Okay, so that was an amazing paragraph, and I found it a little hard to read, so you might have found it a little hard to digest listening to it. So let's break it down. So he's saying, Shoghi Effendi is saying, we've spent most of this letter talking about different aspects of what's going on right now in America and in the Baha'i world. And a word more, if the destiny of the people and of this country is to be correctly apprehended. So, for no matter how ignorant of the source from which these directing energies proceed, so people and the mass of the nation who has no idea about Baha'u'llah, but Baha'u'llah's teachings and power has released this energy and focus and direction and principles. And however slow and laborious the process of eliminating prejudice and creating unity and all this stuff, it is becoming increasingly evident that the nation as a whole, whether through the agency of its government or otherwise, so through policy or through other grassroots movements or other kinds of movements, is gravitating under the influence of forces that it can neither comprehend nor control towards such associations and policies wherein, as indicated by Abdul-Baha, her true destiny must lie. So I feel like he's saying in 1938 when he wrote this, now and in the future, which is today, that the country is gravitating towards policies and ideologies that are, without people knowing it, inspired by the revelation of Baha'u'llah. That's what I feel like he's saying. Leave a comment, let me know if you see it totally differently. Both the community of the American believers who are aware of that source, i.e. Baha'is, and the great mass of their countrymen who have not as yet recognized the hand that directs their destiny, are contributing each in its own way. So the Baha'is and the greater community of the North America, we are all contributing in our own way to the realization of the hopes and the fulfillment of the promises voiced in the above quoted words of Abdul-Baha. So whether we know it or not, where we are moving towards the realization of leading the nation spiritually. The world is moving on. Its events are unfolding ominously. This is 1938. And with bewildering rapidity. The whirlwind of passions is swift and alarmingly violent. The new world is being insensibly drawn into its vortex. I think he means like the new world, like America, United States. So we're being drawn into the vortex of this craziness. The potential storm centers of the earth are already casting their shadows upon its shores. Dangers undreamt of and unpredictable threaten it both from within and from without. Its governments and peoples are being gradually enmeshed in the coils of the world's recurrent crises and fierce controversies. The Atlantic and Pacific Oceans are, with every acceleration in the march of science, steadily shrinking into mere channels. The great republic of the West finds itself particularly and increasingly involved. Distant rumblings echo menacingly in the ebullitions of its people. On its flanks are ranged the potential storm centers of the European continent and of the Far East. On its southern horizon there looms what might conceivably develop into another center of agitation and danger. Man, he saw it all, my gosh. The world is contracting into a neighborhood. America, willingly or unwillingly, must face and grapple with the new situation. For purposes of national security, let alone any humanitarian motive, she must assume the obligations imposed by this newly created neighborhood. Paradoxical as it may seem, her only hope of extricating herself from the perils gathering around her is to become entangled in that very web of international association which the hand of an inscrutable providence is weaving. That's very interesting. Paradoxical as it may seem, her only hope of extricating herself from the perils gathering around her is to become entangled in that very web of international association which the hand, capitalized, of an inscrutable providence is weaving. Abdul-Baha's counsel to a highly placed official in its government comes to mind. With particular appropriateness and force. You can best serve your country if you strive in your capacity as a citizen of the world to assist in the eventual application of the principle of federalism underlying the government of your own country, to the relationships now existing between the peoples and nations of the world, the ideals that fired the imagination of America's tragically unappreciated president, whose high endeavors, however much nullified by a visionless generation, Abdul-Baha, through his own pen, acclaimed as signalizing the dawn of the most great peace. Though now lying in the dust, bitterly approach a heedless generation for having so cruelly abandoned them. Okay, I don't know my American history well enough to know what he's talking about. I'm going to upload this video and do a little research and put some stuff in the comments. But feel free to educate me if you understand if he's talking about Wilson or Lincoln. I don't know what he's talking about. Okay. You can best serve your country if you strive in your capacity as a citizen of the world to assist in the eventual application of the principle of federalism, which I don't know what that means. Tell me, you guys. Underlying the government of your own country, to the relationships now existing between the peoples and nations of the world. So applying the principle of federalism, which underlies our country, to the relationships between the peoples and nations of the world. The ideals that fire the imagination of America's tragically unappreciated president, whose high endeavors, however much nullified by a visionless generation, Abdul-Baha, through his own pen, acclaimed as signalizing the dawn of the most great peace, though now lying in the dust, bitterly reproach a heedless generation for having so cruelly abandoned them. So, my friends, we're going to stop there. I'm sure I left you with more questions than answers. I'm going to go do a little bit of research. That concludes paragraph 119. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope you have an amazing week playing your part to make the world a better place. I have links to my Patreon, which is a really cool way to be a part of everything that I create by being able to collaborate with me, give me feedback, and see the behind the scenes of things that I am making, and you get exclusive content to stuff that I don't show anyone else, my artwork and my thoughts as they're unfolding, and some live chat. So check out Patreon, starts at just $1 a month. I would love to bring you into my snare and you be a part of my inner circle. Right, you guys, I'll catch you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.